Alright, so folks, apologies for all of that. إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد. السلام الله عليكم ورحمة تعالى وبركاته. What's that? Yeah, I've gone live. Yeah. So, it is live. Sorry about that. Now I've got to have this angle. I thought there would be a slightly varied setup. Anyway, afwan and shukran for your forbearance and patience. I see quite a few dynamic questions. I'm just thinking, what we can do is mix them up. If somebody wants to just ask, we can just take it live, or if you prefer, we can. What I'll do is maybe read out one, two of these, and then if you've got some questions, we can bounce it back and forth like that. Yep. All right. So, recent guidelines state that the limit of alcohol. Obviously, there's the handwriting issue as well. My reading might as well just name and shame people. So. The recent guidelines of alcohol intake is 14 units. Am I reading this correct? But is this permissible? What? I think they were meant to ask this before they took in the units. This person clearly should not be driving home. My advice, get an Uber. So, it's not fun to drink and drive. You end up spilling it most of the time. So anyway, I'm not sure what that question really is. I think they must have mixed this up with questions for Parliament, where they want to change legislation. All right. So, who are the Muslim role models in the UK? Damn, who are the Muslim role models in the UK? I don't know. That's a good question, actually. What would be Muslim role models in the UK? Well, I mean, is it anti-humbleness to say my own name? I'm only joking. Right, so I would not be a good role model. So, I don't know. I mean, who do people... It's actually interesting to get some names. What? I was all keen sitting here, the student. Who would you say? Give me some names of some people that you see as role models. Must be somebody. Young, youth, the creme de la creme of Plymouth and student life. Come on, give me some names of some. Who do you guys see as role models? Who? Muazzam. Oh, Muazzam. Doing it. Apart, obviously, Muazzam. Who else? Out back there. Anybody? Role models? Noman Ali Khan. Yeah, I mean, the question said in the UK, although I think Noman Ali Khan's an awesome role model. Not in the UK, but yeah, it doesn't matter. Look at that. Broad-minded thinking. That's what I'm talking about. Doesn't matter. But okay, who else? Let's take some. Who? Who? Okay, perhaps. I mean, anybody else? Thing is, you see, I'm not too. There's a difference of how people do things, I suppose. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with maybe my methodology or my perspective and outlook and approach. Likewise, I mean, we as human beings would, not always share certain views. This whole thing of this da'wah, what does da'wah mean? And this whole thing of going in the streets to people and coming up to... I find this very antithetical to the message of Islam. I find it does much more harm than it does good. I find it doesn't really... I don't think that's how... this term da'wah, we've got this da'wah culture. I don't think that's what Islam wants people to do, in my understanding. I don't think that is... Obviously, you can call it Islamic because it's to do with Islam as an adjective. It's Islamic. But I don't think it's Islamic per se. I don't think that's what Islam wanted people to do. That's not what the Prophet or the companions, or they didn't teach it. I mean, you could take their teachings and manipulate them to mean that that's what you ought to do. Go out, people stopping people and all this kind of... People are just polite and they don't want to come across rude, I suppose. So they'll just probably listen and they're not... But this is... And this whole thing as well of this haram police going around, this is haram, why haven't you got your hijab on, why haven't you got a beard, why haven't you got this, don't you feel embarrassed, don't you feel... This kind of culture, I find it very alien to true Islam. Although it's weirdly become quite acceptable amongst people. It's ironic that we are living in an age where this is unprecedented throughout Islamic history. You could go right from back to Revelation to where we are. It is unprecedented that we are in an age where the activism of Islam is actually led by people who are non-scholars and not knowledgeable about Islam. So most people who are active about Islam are not actually the people who hold the knowledge about Islam. That is unprecedented. That has never happened in Islamic or Muslim history ever. That the people going out giving da'wah, the people going out doing this were actually people who weren't learned about Islam. That as a concept is so bizarre. It's like saying that the scientific community is being led by people who just read pamphlets on science. And they've got no actual training in science. They've got no true understanding. Apart from that, can you just think how bizarre, or the medical community, medicine is being generally propagated and advertised and pushed and taught by people who actually don't have any formal... Look how bizarre that would sound as a concept. Right. So I think in that sense we are in an unprecedented kind of time where that's happened. So I mean, yeah, I don't think personally. I remember there was this program came on not so long ago, or last year was it now? Yeah, so it came on about the Muslims and what was it? Muslims Like Us or something. But anyway, so the thing in it, and so one of the guys, he goes off to this stall and he holds up this stall and he's got these pamphlets, and if anything, it's detrimental to the message of Islam. It's very detrimental. People don't like it. They might be just polite in your face and not say anything. People don't really, would you ever read a pamphlet and just, wow, whoa, that's changed everything? You wouldn't. Let's face it. Would you? I mean, if I gave you a pamphlet on Buddhism, would you become a Buddhist? You wouldn't. And then, let alone bloody what he was, anyway, he had certain political pamphlets about Islamic State and stuff. But anyway, right, so the point is, I think role models, I like what somebody said up there, that I don't think they have to be UK specific, but there's a lot of good role models. I think America is perhaps ahead of us in that, with Donald Trump and that. So, no, I mean, people like Noman Ali Khan, obviously they've got a whole league of people like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, Imam Zaid. You've got so many people in America that are, I think, awesome kind of role models. I think here we, inshallah, come along, people like you, as you kind of study and become more acquainted, then you can fulfill that role. Right, so...
Can I just ask a question?
Go for it, please.
So, you said that going out and sort of giving the message to people at stalls or whatever, it's got a negative connotation because it pushes people away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you not feel it's not more so to teach them the religion, it's more so to provide a source of information to entice enough sort of, speculation to go and find out more so what is Islam actually about? Because some people don't have, the outlet. Not everyone's open to Muslims very confidently and say, oh, Imam Sahib, what do I do in this situation?
Are you talking about Muslims or non-Muslims?
I'm talking about Muslims and non-Muslims. Like, at the end of the day, if you're going to go give dawah, fair enough, you want to focus on the non-Muslims, but even though, the whole, the Jamaat, what's it called? the Tabligh Jamaat, what they do is they focus more on the Muslims and call them to the masjid. So it's the same sort of thing in a different.
And you think that's how it ought to be?
I don't think this is how it should be, but I don't think it's a negative connotation to say that
Do you think it works?
I think it can work if done
Look
properly.
at that.
You gave the example of when people in medicine go and teaching medicine. But for example, when you get a drug rep, he's not the pharmacologist who designed the drug. He goes, delivers information enough to say to you, okay, I actually want this. And they go.
Your drug rep doesn't go to the public.
No, your drug rep goes to people that want to know about it.
Oh, he goes to the people that are going to buy the medicine.
And
Exactly. Now that's not the same. You see, now that's a different market. You're looking for cost-effective products. Now, if your bread and butter is cars, you buy and sell cars. I can bring cars to you. I can say, look, hey, listen, you're buying it from that guy. I can get you a better offer here. That's different because you need that for your daily running. I mean, that's what you do. They go to surgeries, they go to different places which need certain medications. They say, look, listen, don't purchase from them, purchase from us. We'll throw in these things, we'll get you these perks. That's not the same as talking about God. And then preaching about Islam. Do you really think people don't know about they don't know the word Islam, or they've not heard of Islam in the UK?
No, I think they've definitely heard about it. However, they haven't gone out and actually,
Well, you think they don't know about the internet?
No, with the internet, I'm sure you agree that it's not the best place to go and see.
What pamphlets are?
It's not about pamphlets. If you have enough confidence to answer people's questions, and you think.
And do these people have the answers to answer the questions?
But can you generalize and say every single person doesn't?
I can say most definitely don't. Would you not agree? Do you feel that most people actually know what they're talking about?
I wouldn't feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, they wouldn't. That's the truth. I mean, most of these people, I'm not doubting their sincerity. You see, there's a difference. I think we need to clarify that I'm not doubting their good intentions. You can be really positive as a person. You can be an awesome person. These people may be great people. They may be great friends and neighbors and whatever. I don't know them. But the point is, this isn't about people. This is about a phenomenon that we've got here. So people think this is how I spread the message of Islam. Nobody wants to know like that. Look, let's face it. You wouldn't. If I gave you a pamphlet on Buddhism, would you accept it?
I don't think it's about accepting. It's more so to entice enough sort of.
Entice.
For it. Yeah, you want to. If it's
about what are you? Tell me what you're enticing about. What are you enticing to?
Whether or not you find it stimulating enough or something which you feel, I actually want to know more about it. I don't really
about what? About God? About Islam?
About Islam, yeah.
What, you think people don't already know a certain amount about Islam?
I think you'd be surprised, especially this part of the world, because people actually don't.
No, they know enough to know what you're going to say. Like, obviously, so here's a leaflet. Leaflet's going to say, look, Islam is all about peace. Yeah. Let's face it, nobody buys that anymore. Nobody believes that. Do you believe that? Right, okay, okay, not to put it on you, let me retract that. But look, nobody believes that anymore. Islam's all about peace. So you're going to say, well, okay, I'm trying to understand, what is this leaflet going to say that somebody doesn't know? Because media sensationalizes Islam. Right now, Islam is the it's the hot selling thing on media, in news outlets. Everything is about Islam, usually negative, terrorism associated. So people know that Islam is a religion. They know it began with the Prophet Muhammad. They know it came from Arabia. They know Muslims have a holy book called the Quran. They know Muslims call God Allah. They know that Muslims have views about an afterlife, hell and heaven. Most people know that Muslims actually share many prophets and similarities with Christianity and Judaism. Most people know that there are a great percentage of the world that are Muslims. Most people know that Muslims pray. Most people know that Muslims have Ramadan. Most people know that Muslims they don't eat pork. Most people, this is like common knowledge. This is like, I could stop somebody who knows nothing about religion and ask him, and he'd probably know all these things.
That's what I'm saying. Because of, I'm from the north. I agree with you. Fine, yeah, I'm from Birmingham, so you probably think that. But genuinely, in this part of the world, the country, it really isn't like that. You ask someone, the first question they ask you is, where are you from? Or where is your origin from?
Sure.
Not because they're racist, not because they feel it's because they genuinely haven't met a person of color before. So you're assuming that they have and
I mean,
level of
I think, look,
understanding of
look, I don't want to kind of sidetrack, and I don't mean to kind of just focus too much on this point. And I don't want to be, like, if somebody's very passionate about that, that's what they're going to do. That's their thing. I'm telling you, my understanding of Islam is that that's not what the Prophet used to do, that's not what the Prophet taught, that may be an interpretation of what people are trying. The Prophet never used to stop people like this and do this. He never used to tell the people, go around stopping people, give out little things, do this, do this, do this. Yes, obviously the message of Islam spread, the Prophet, they had their ways and we've got our ways. If you're going to say to me, should we promote the well-being of Islam, I agree with you. Should we make resources available? I agree with you. We are in a day and age where things are all about, HD, and they're about quality, and they're about stuff like this. If you're asking me as a person, do I believe the culture of pamphleting, pamphleteering, standing and telling people that in some city centre that, take this and attain salvation through this leaflet? I don't think it works. Two, I think it's not necessarily Islamic. I don't think it's against Islam to do that, but I don't think Islam taught you to do that. That's my understanding. Thirdly, I feel in this culture it actually has a negative impact. But I mean, that's fine. I mean, people can do it, and they do that. They don't listen to, obviously, they don't, but that's just my understanding of it, okay? That's not to say that there shouldn't be other meaningful ways of engaging people. Also, the most important thing is that these things need to be done with knowledge. The biggest problem is that most people who have the loudest voices have very little knowledge about Islam. And whatever little they do have, they just Google as well. They just Google people from Saudi or, from certain parts of the world, take their culture, impose it on here. It doesn't work in Britain. And so what we get is a huge clash, and then it's explained by God. Anyway, inshallah, I don't mean to, by the way, to offend or anything. I'm just saying, as I understand it, you don't need to accept that you could feel that, look, no, I love pamphleteering, it's my thing, I think it's going to turn everybody Muslim, I'm going to do it, whatever. Alhamdulillah, whatever, each to their own. But that was just my take on it. Right, Lord, from all these things, I pick up one that I've answered already. Can you talk about reasons for wearing hijab or generally covering up? Look at this, I'm getting so these are like set-up questions, and you say them and you get set up. I'm not sure what that means by reasons for, because the reasons, in essence, Islam, hijab is just generally about modesty. That's what it's about. So I'm not sure if that's what the person meant. Islam actually, not just Islam, like we believe in Islam that all previous religions too, and especially Islam, had certain goals. And it had objectives. And it came for the preservation of these objectives. Those objectives are 5. In essence, what the scholars highlight: the preservation of life, the preservation of faith, the intellect, human survival, progeny, and actually wealth. Which is interesting, because these 5 are actually unanimously accepted by people, yet in the day-to-day teaching and interaction of Muslims, you wouldn't think that they actually accept that, because intellect and wealth is not something they openly promote so much as an Islamic thing, but actually Islam came for the preservation of these maqasid. Anything that directly damages these becomes immediately haram. Anything that indirectly damages them can become haram through a secondary layer. So, and these are placed in the primary kind of layer. They call the objectives, the maqasid of Sharia, and the daruriyat, the necessities of life. Then you have beneath them the kind of needs in life, a layer not as paramount, but less, which involves where life would still carry on. It could function, but not function with ease. So things like transactions and stuff like this, and buying, selling, that all comes into that category. And then you have a third category, which the Sharia calls tahsiniyat, which is like decor, a kind of decorative element to kind of style out society in a particular way, to give it that kind of like icing. And in that layer come rulings like hijab. They're from the tahsiniyat of the sharia. They're not from the daruriyat or the hajiyat of the sharia. But the thing is, obviously today when people teach it, they don't teach it like this, but that's once again comes back to how we've been taught Islam. We've been taught it in a particular way. But it is considered an obligation within Islam, modesty and hijab. What is the hijab? There is some dispute over that. What does hijab actually mean? Hijab actually means like covering. It doesn't. It's commonly come to mean the headscarf. That's not what hijab actually means in the Sharia or in the. Today people use hijab to mean the headscarf, but it actually means the covering. Most scholars do generally have said that covering the hair is part of the hijab. That's the general mainstream view. There are some differences on that, but generally, and then some have gone to a further extreme to say you must cover the face and things like this, which many scholars do not accept. I don't personally accept things like that. And Sheikh Ahmed Taha Rayyan, one of the most leading authorities in the world today, when he was asked that as well, and he said this is not from the Quran and it's not from the Sunnah. And these are simply cultural safeguarding measures that were adopted for the safety of women at certain times throughout history. That to confuse them as Quran and Sunnah is not accurate. Right, so anyway, I hope that gives some light there. Okay, does somebody want to ask some questions whilst we're... I'll carry on picking these, but yes, go for it.
We were talking earlier about the Dawah and how...
I think there's a whole Dawah crew over there.
I wanted to ask, in your view, because there is a lot of negative stereotypes about Islam in the media, how do we, like individually or as a ummah, how do we try to portray the positive image of Islam? Because you said you don't really agree with it, but you didn't give a solution.
That's a good question. Well, right, the thing is, how do we go about... Okay, first of all, this is an uphill struggle. Because obviously the media is very powerful. It's very, it's got resources, it's got immense reach. It's not the same as like you or me or, like for us to counter... I'm going to say that we need to counter it, I agree with you, but I'm just saying it's an uphill struggle because there's immense resources, there's dynamic methods of getting out there what they're saying, vilifying what Muslims should, Muslims are terrorists or extremists, or they have these kind of weird views, or they do weird things, misogynists and all this stuff. Now, when we're countering that, we don't have that reach or that voice, so it is an uphill struggle, but it needs to be done. How should it be done? I think there's multiple methods. First of all, we need to equip ourselves with the correct understanding, because unfortunately some Muslims themselves are pushing weird views, which makes it problematic. Okay, so this is what gives them a leg to stand on. You see, the media is just blowing things out of proportion, but they need a little leg to stand on. And then you get total nutcases who they're going to find, like ISIS and so on. But then they need more than that. They need something that is amongst normal Muslims as well, not just like in Raqqa over there in Syria. They need somebody here who's going to say something stupid. And then we, as the Muslim community, provide them these kind of opportunities. So people will say things like, it's okay in Islam to hit your wife. People will say things like that. That is utterly unacceptable. It is haram, it is forbidden. But people will say something like this. Now, the media's got that, excellent. Now that will tie in with that other narrative, and they're going to say, look, here's a respectable person who you all like and whatever, and he's saying this. Well, it's not ISIS. ISIS are definitely saying it, but these people are saying it. So first of all, we need to reevaluate some of our own beliefs, which are mainly cultural, and they've been given an Islamic veneer to them. So that needs to happen. So that's one thing that needs to happen. Another thing is that we need to get resources out there. So people, like, somebody asked before, people want to know the answer to certain things. So nowadays everything's on social media, it's on YouTube. We need also like very dynamic, high quality kind of responses by people who can speak English, actually effectively speak it. And they can present their responses in a coherent manner and show that, look, well, and these things need to be need to be out there. So resources, I agree. People, then good manners. This is one of the most fundamental things is actually just character. And that we have so much teachings in Islam about working on character. And so I think that's at a personal level, at a social level, developing resources, things like this. At an international level, creating awareness, networking with things like that, getting involved in other projects that are going out for things like human rights or other things, getting involved in things like that. And also reaching, and I think there needs to be a collaborative effort. Like, so sometimes there could be an effort that doesn't, like, so for example, people are working against cancer research. They're not Muslims, but Muslims should also join in. They should think, let's open Islamic one just for helping victims of. Why not collaborate? Why not work together? Like these kind of things, like we're all human beings at the end of the day. So these things speak louder than words. People think, yeah, but Muslims, they're not. I mean, to be fair, it is an uphill battle, an uphill struggle because the media is incredibly powerful. It's not, we could yell 1,000 times and they just have to show a snippet for 3 seconds and it would have more power than what we would do. So I don't deny that. Yep.
You know what you said about some people like give the media leg to stand on. Don't you think some of the actual classical true teachings of Islam are actually the media would pounce on it anyway because of the fact that Western culture is so different to Islamic, the true Islamic principles. So even something that's considered proper Islam,
could you give
society would look at us and say,
would you give an example? You don't want to? Okay, fair enough. Okay, fair enough. Carry on. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I think I would say the operative word there is true. When you say true Islamic teachings, you see, there's many things within Islam that, first of all, there's so much diversity within Islam. There's been critical voices from the very onset that have spoken against certain things. These views need to be evaluated. Right, so when you say something is true, what do you mean by true? Do you mean things which have had sway in the medieval times?
No, I mean, say for example something classical. So say for example something like the hijab.
Okay.
If society looks at hijab and views it as something, oh look what the Muslims are doing, then at the end of the day, it's not about us saying. I
agree with what you're saying, that there will always be certain elements who are out to get you and to vilify you. But then I come back to the responsibility part. There's several women who wear hijab, right? And they do it in an excellent way. It looks good. It looks, they're very stylish. They've got they know, it doesn't, I don't mean by that good in the sense, just in case people are saying in the wrong sense. What I mean is they wear it well. Some people seem to push this culture of this blacked out kind of thing. Where did this even come from in Islam? Where did this kind of outfit come from? This blacked out thing of wearing the burqa and this what is seen as, interpreted as like a ninja outfit by people. Where did this come from? This wasn't there in the early time of the Prophet or the companions, or even in huge parts of the Muslim world today. You might see in some parts of rural Far East like Pakistan. Otherwise, even places like Pakistan, generally the rural parts, you wouldn't see anybody wearing a black burqa there. Maybe an odd person. You go to places like Morocco, go to places like Egypt, like prior to what's happened now, but the Middle East, places like Syria, Jordan, they wear hijab. Turkey, they don't wear it. There's ways of doing things. You see, when you present something that looks really odd and abnormal and weird, yes, you see, they're out for it anyway. They're looking for an excuse. Some elements are. Some elements ain't, but some elements, I agree, are always looking to attack. Now, but why not do things naturally? Why are we so adamant on pushing something which isn't truly? This is why I said the operative word was true, when you said true Islamic principles. So, what are the true Islamic principles? Islam doesn't give us a uniform, but people have decided to opt for one. They've decided to make one. It's now resulted in problems because it just wants everybody to look like Gulf Arabs. Like we seem to have this understanding that Islam came to Arabicize the world, to just turn them into Gulf Arabs, not even all Arabs, but just Gulf, make them dress like what's going on in the Gulf. And that was not what Islam came for.
But don't you think most scholars already understand that and they don't portray that message across anyway?
Of the dress.
Of the dress code.
You see, because there's a difference between, I think they know what I've said, they know that to be true in the books, but in practice they don't push it. They push culture.
But don't you think it's already portrayed by what people wear? Because you gave the example of Egypt and the ladies that dress hijab there, they don't all dress all black. You gave the
They
example
hardly
of Morocco.
do.
They don't do that.
Black, yeah.
So don't you think the scholars already...
But not in the West.
portraying that way?
I'm talking about the West. I'm not talking about the Muslim world. In the Muslim world, they've got their things going on.
You can just look at...
In places like the
in
UK, yeah.
In the United Kingdom, if you go to a place that's highly populated with Muslims,
Yeah.
and you walk in the streets and you see a Muslim lady,
Yeah.
well, 9 times out of 10, her hijab is not black.
I would disagree. If she's wearing
The
hijab,
population of the university campuses,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10...
university
the
campuses
population
I may accept, I accept, but not the Muslim communities.
But
So
don't
if
you
you
think
go
that
to a
the
Muslim
message-
community,
But don't you think the message is already being portrayed because of that? Because you're saying people are not portraying this message, but if it's already being acted upon, isn't it already being portrayed? We must have got this message from somewhere.
no, but they're arguing against it. Like they're silently pushing this stuff. So they for example, I'll give an example. My daughter she just began in her primary school. They've just began these kind of Quran classes, and they said as part of these Quran classes, right? This is like voluntary for anybody in the community that wants to come. They can come to them. So they said she should wear, as part of the uniform, this black abaya and the black hijab. And I'm disgusted at it. I'm really annoyed at that. I don't like that at all. First of all, I don't think that you should even be talking about hijab to a 5-year-old because you shouldn't be sexualizing a child. Secondly, right, what is this black? Like, I mean, where did we get this from? Like, why? I could understand if you're going to say, oh, can they just we want to teach them certain how, just put on a head covering or put on a scarf. But what is this? They do push this. Go to all the madrasas. They push black. They do tacitly, theoretically, they agree with what I'm saying. If you said to them, they would say, yeah, we accept, theoretically, there is no black and this isn't. But in practice, silently, they push it.
But you mean the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
I don't know, unless you were there. Where'd you get that from?
I heard in a hadith where...
No, I doubt that. Immensely, because this black thing usually, I generally emerged during the Ottoman period.
Fine, true, but I
So-
heard that in the time of the Prophet when the verses of hijab were revealed, the woman would dress as if they were crows, I think that's as in...
You see, so, no, but that proves my point. So you believe there's religious validity to it. Or people, not you, but people then. But it proves my point. They're doing this kind of stuff.
That you're focused on such a small group of individuals rather than the majority, because the majority of Muslim ladies do not...
Don't do hijab,
all black.
accept.
Exactly.
No, but the majority of women do not do hijab.
My point is that is already being portrayed by a majority of scholars that you don't have to dress your hijab as all black. You're just focusing on ones that do, but that's a minority.
I would disagree. I would disagree.
I would disagree as well.
Fair enough. I mean, I live in Birmingham, which is heavily populated by Muslims. Most Muslims are not practicing Muslims. I believe probably about 5% of Muslims are only practicing. Out of those that are practicing, women that wear hijab, I feel the majority of them that wear hijab do wear the black thing. I'm not talking about young, college-going, university-going girls. I'm talking about general people. Once they finish their education and settle down, you could just take a walk in any Muslim community area, right, that where people are quite practicing, and just take a look. I won't be wrong. Now the thing is, I respect in universities it's not the norm, because this is not a residential area. But when you go into Muslim communities which are residential areas, you'll find that they don't preach it, but my point of coming back to the person was there's sometimes tacit things that we're doing. We're silently doing them. We're creating this kind of occultish look to us. We're kind of doing certain things without being vociferous about them, without kind of shouting them. We are allowing them to kind of, and then to undo this damage is difficult because you already set the scene of what Islam looks like. Now to undo it, it looks shocking. It's like now the way I am, people are shocked. How is that Islamic? How can an Islamic scholar look like that? Because the scene has already been set in their mind. To undo that damage is difficult now. This is why I say to people, sometimes what's even more challenging than having to learn is for us to unlearn. That's a problem. Okay, let's move on to something else. When do you become qualified to comment on Islamic topics? Well, that's a good one. I think if you have some area of specialism, you can comment on things. There's different ways of doing that. The one is you could obviously study to like a scholarship status where you would be taught, you'd go through all the major Islamic sciences, at least to an intermediate and advanced level. So you'd go through things like, you'd study the Quran, the tafsir, the commentaries, Hadith, the major books of Hadith. You'd learn Sharia, you'd learn legal theory, how does Sharia diversify. You'd learn differences of opinions, evidences. You'd go through, and usually this training takes anything, if you do it formally, it takes anything between 6 to 8 years. After that, you definitely should be qualified if you take an interest in it, or you could just specialize in a particular aspect and therefore comment on that. So some people, like somebody may have done a PhD on something. He may not be a scholar, but he's done a PhD on something specific. He can comment on that because he's done so much research in this area. So I think that's fine. The only problem is, you see, when people pass, it's not even about commenting. It's they become muftis or qadis, judges, and they become like self-appointed scholars without studying. So you get people on, and this is part of that dawah culture that we're saying. You get people saying things like, any person who does not pray is a kafir. I've seen this going around on social media. And they push this as a ruling, they push this as a teaching, they push this as they promote it, they've got followers, they've got... This kind of stuff is... right, so the thing is, this kind of stuff is problematic. So, okay, cool. Well, some technical questions here. Want to bounce any back forth, or I'll just pick one from here. In Iran, we are allowed to eat food using hunting dogs. So, is eating stunned food halal? I thought they were going to say, is eating the hunting dog allowed? Look at the... normally I'm doing my Q&A and everybody says you're drinking with the... I don't know if it's coming up reversed now. Everybody's like, oh, you're drinking with the left hand. They make such an issue out of it. Well, there you are, witnesses. So, using hunting dogs. I don't know if people... I don't know if that... Today, is that... So he's eating... I'm trying to see... Okay, so the question is that we're allowed to eat from hunting dogs, so can we eat stunned? I'm just trying to see the leap and the connection. So, okay. You see, stunned food, it doesn't, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't kill the animal, but it's, unless people know otherwise, it kind of numbs the animal out. Gives them, it kind of tranquilizes them. That's what it does, as far as I'm aware. And it's a low voltage that can't usually do something like cause death or anything. But so in that case, it would be, you could eat stunned meat. According to Islam, it must be slaughtered. the only question, I know, and this is the question that's thrown back at Islam, then that's the interesting thing, is about suffering. Is if it's undue suffering, that's where it becomes a problem. Right. So that's what, and I know people will say, well, maybe slaughtering is suffering. But then, and that's the kind of debate, because Muslims will feel once the kind of carotid artery is cut, that consciousness is immediately lost. But anyway, so it's about the suffering. If you're putting an animal through all this undue suffering before it's slaughtered, so if it's getting stunned, but to be fair, the state of what's going on, the whole battery farms and all those kind of things is diabolical. Right, what do you think about homosexuality? Well, what do you think about homosexuality? Can someone be gay Muslim? I think I know where this question came from. So, well, I mean, you see, first of all, what do I think about it? I didn't realize you were taking that kind of an interest in my thoughts on these topics. So, can someone... I don't really take too much of a fancy to it, really. People are, what the hell? What's... Oh, look at the questions. I'm surprised people ain't just asking them so what do I think about it? Okay, so... can someone be gay and Muslim? Yeah, I mean, so it depends here what you're asking. By being homosexual, you don't leave the fold of Islam. You don't become... That's like saying, can somebody gamble and be Muslim? Or can somebody drink alcohol and be Muslim? There's certain things that the faith doesn't sanction, doesn't accept as a religion. One amongst them is homosexuality. It doesn't accept it. In fact, most organized and institutionalized religions don't accept homosexuality. Yep.
Isn't it more...
Oh, sorry, so we know where the question came from. I'll text you my personal thoughts on it afterwards. Sorry, bro.
I just wanted to...
I got this. Yep, sorry.
I think you were going on to the fact that, isn't it more the fact that it's not the... because I think like it's the fact that the homosexuality as an act is the thing that's not like Islam. I think is that what you're trying to come to?
Good point. Somebody's been doing their research on this. That's a good point. No, that is a good point. That's a good point.
What I know, as in, I don't know if you're going to come onto it or not, but then what I know is that the actual, it's the feelings of homosexuality aren't the thing that's prohibited in Islam. It's the actual action of committing it. And I think that's what
right, that's a good point. That Islam was never trying to ever police people's emotions. And it never speaks at that level of policing emotions or policing love or policing... so, in that sense, if you're saying just homosexual feelings or thoughts or friendships or I don't know, whatever, at that level, Islam doesn't address that. It doesn't seem to condemn it. It's just silent on it in general. The scholars, when they've spoken about it, they've said, well, that in itself is not an issue. That's what people like Imam Shafi'i and other people previously, when they spoke about these topics, said, well, look, it's not... it's the action. It's acting out. You're right. And in the sense, that is prohibited. And that is prohibited within all general major kind of organized religion as an institution of marriage, for example. They don't accept it like that. So Islam is no different on that topic. Although I do think today we seem to have an abnormal kind of a bout of homophobia going on. Homophobia is unacceptable. You know, this thing of this hatred for homosexuals is not acceptable by Islam. It's never been taught by Islam. You may be able to manipulate certain teachings to show that, but that's not what they actually say. And that's not how scholars historically behaved, or people, or even Muslim communities previously behaved. So there seems to, and this more so seems to be in the West specifically. It's weird, because Muslims in Muslim countries are not actually that homophobic. In fact, many Muslims in places, in huge parts of the Muslim world, are usually bisexual. In fact, things like you read, you'll be shocked at, like certain reports, there's been documentaries on things like this. If you've lived, I've lived in different parts of the Muslim world, and you'll be shocked how normal it seems amongst people. Places like Pakistan, they don't, I'm not saying they don't see it as an institution of marriage, but you would seldom find people kind of being so shocked about it, and in some places they saw it as even weirdly, even normal. I know you might think this is, but this is, and there's been documentaries made about this, about places like Pakistan and other places. This is actually, so it's actually a Western phenomenon, that Muslims growing up in the West seem to be really have this issue of homophobia. In places like Saudi Arabia, it's so widespread. I mean, things like homosexuality and bisexuality, it's actually seen as almost like an epidemic to some extent. That you can just read the reports if you know people. I mean, I know people that live there, that are friends, that talk about things all the time, news incidents. This has happened, that's happened. All these kind of practices, social pervert practices that are going on. And it's so. What I'm trying to say is that this homophobia thing seems to be a very Western Muslim kind of reaction. I don't know why. And I actually think it comes down to insecurities. As psychology would teach, that these are reaction formations that are that people are, maybe they're insecure with themselves. That's why they become incredibly homophobic. But that is not permissible within Islam, this kind of hatred and stuff like that. And once again, these things, tying back to what somebody said, these teachings have to be amended, because people will say these kind of things. People, they do push this. Once again, whether they push it at an official level or in the informal levels, they will. And that needs to be amended. Okay, can you wear M&S jumpers? I haven't got one on, have I? No, so just in case. With 37% silk. Whoa! Look at the accuracy of the silk. The thing is this, look, silk, there are prohibitions for men on silk, but there's a distinction between that silk and synthetic silk. Why the prohibition came, there's a difference of opinion, but generally people say, whether it was to do with luxury at the time or whatever it was, but the Prophet ﷺ, or it may have been other reasons, there's a difference of opinion on that, but there's a prohibition on the two things, gold and silk for men. Now, that was, the scholars did say, one, it was the pure silk of that was being made, not synthetic silk, doesn't come under that. Secondly, what doesn't come under that is where you have fabric that contains some silk, but it's like a mixture. And if it's at a kind of small percentage, 37%, I would assume that's synthetic silk anyway. I wouldn't assume, unless it is, I don't know, Marks and Spencer as well. So, but generally, if it was pure silk, then the mainstream view is that that's not allowed. Right, so come on then, what are some questions? Out of all of the religions, how do you know Islam is the truth? What the hell? Alright, so actually there was another question somewhere. I just saw one about doubt as well, very similar. I mean, you see, when you say how do you know something, we're talking about things like certainty. You'll never have certainty in faith. That's why it's called faith. If it was certainty, then it wouldn't belong to the realm of faith. It would be empiricism. It would be empiric, like it's something we can test and see and believe in. It would be scientific. Now, the thing is, what I would say is what Islam actually tells you to do is to reason, which is interesting because the whole message of the Quran, a core part of the entire Quran, is all about trying to bring people to reason, which ironically over time has been drowned out by people then. And they actually don't like the sound of the voice of reason. And people become insecure with that. But really, it's actually a core Quranic construct. And the whole thing is about, wait a minute, what do you actually, why don't you question, why don't you think, why don't you... So this would be a personal journey. And faith is a personal journey. It's going to be something which you go right throughout your lives. And doubt is a part of that journey. Somebody had asked here about doubt, about when you have doubts and stuff. Doubt is a part of faith. Because otherwise it would just be certainty. And we don't have certainty. Doubt can be also very useful at times, because it allows you to question certain things. It can be very helpful. Obviously, there can be like hyperbolic doubt, and you can go OCD with doubt, and those kind of things are unhelpful. But anyway, so I hope that sheds some light. It's a personal journey. I don't know if you could say really that this is here it is. Well, it's obvious because look, A, B, and C tells you Islam trumps all others. No, it doesn't work like that, but you would have to yourself, through reason, see and question. And you would have to look, and it would be a journey that you would go on. But let's take some, before some of you start falling asleep in the in the crowd. What are some, rather than on some of these post-it notes, some questions? Go on then, Abdul Rahman.
You said it's more of a personal journey. Can we just ask some of your own personal, if you're willing to share them?
Yeah.
Some of your own personal reasons and logical deductions that you have made to think that Islam is the true religion. So why did you choose Islam over another religion, for example?
Okay,
You don't have to ask it.
No, the thing is this, look, it's religion for most people around the world. If you go anywhere around the world, you ask most people, why do you believe in whatever it is that you believe? Most people, let's say God. Why do you believe in God? For those people who do believe in God. If you go around the world, whatever religion they are, and you ask them, why do you believe in God? Okay, one is that they're just culturally brought up on something, they've never really questioned it. They've never really thought about it. I don't mean that. I mean somebody who has actually then had a conviction of faith. Most of these will not say, oh, I believe in God because of the ontological argument, or the cosmological argument, or the teleological argument did it for me, or these kind of arguments in philosophy. They're very intelligent and academic, and they're helpful, but they're not actually why people believe in God, right? The truth is, people believe in God because they feel that they have experienced in some way, with them personally, kind of divine intervention. This is how most people, that they feel that they've experienced God in some way, that they've experienced something greater than themselves, that there is something. This yearning, this experience coupled with a yearning for kind of recognizing, or I don't know, or maybe kind of just reflecting and thinking, wow, there must be something to this. That is what it was for me. Along the way, I found several other things which kind of consolidate a person's personal conviction, personal faith. I find it, I'm very fascinated with things like quantum physics, with stuff like this. I find it overwhelming. I find it just so awesome. And I think that it's so shocking almost that when you delve so deep into what is imperceptible, the electrons and subatomic level, what you see, the structure, and I've said this to many people, in fact, those of you, anybody here into quantum physics? Quantum, right, okay, awesome. So when you see things like when you see things like the double slit experiment, when you're going to see how one thing can be in two places at once. That's, okay, that's illogical. It may not be so, but when you try to observe it, how that collapses, what is called the Copenhagen interpretation, that the quantum world, the moment it can tell, it seems to be able to somehow tell that it's being observed. And you can watch the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment to see that even when they observe it, but the choice to observe it is delayed. The moment you choose to observe, it collapses. I think, wow, that's just so, such intricacy and I find it so overwhelming. And I see in that the verse of the Quran, when Allah said that, وَسَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا, that we will show them our signs. فِي الْآفَاقِ, in the cosmos. وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ, that, and in, you see, people here historically thought this meant in yourselves, as in, biology and stuff like this. But when you go right in at the quantum level, so from the cosmos to the quantum world, حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ, at that point it will become manifest that it was the truth. And I think these things, that you go from something so large to something so small, and it just awes you. It's, wow, that there is something. I just feel, that's, once again, people can argue against that. People can say, I don't believe that there is a God. We can't prove. I can't say, look, wait there, I'll just get him on the phone for you. There you go. What is it? Was it Robin Williams? Now, if you'd said it was a collect call. It's all right, guys. No, obviously nobody's watched, too young to have watched those kind of movies. But anyway, so the point is that, you see, so this is, for different people it may be different, but usually it is that personal experience, that reflection. That's what it is. Okay, so so I hope that helps. Is music haram? Alright, look at that. Okay, so what a question. That must Alright, so is music haram? Okay, what am I sensing already in this crowd? Clearly haram, yeah. Take out the violin and just Right, so the thing is, I've answered this previously, and I gave a whole kind of, I went into it. And see, this is the issue when you go into something, so then you think, I don't want to just bore the hell out of everyone. And there is a difference of opinion on these things. Okay, to start off with, in my understanding, I think music is permissible. It's not forbidden. There's nothing in Islam that is both conclusive, sahih and sarih, which states music to be haram. There are plenty of ahadith, but they are either not sahih, they are not, or sarih, or they're not conclusive in their wording. There's a leap of interpretation in them. Like the one in Bukhari, which says, towards the end of time, people will, consider these things permissible. But then they translate that as music, but the word doesn't actually say music. It actually says entertainment. But you see now, there's a leap of interpretation going on. And all the texts that actually say music are not authentic. So, I've explained that, okay, what is the problem with things like music? The problem with things like music is it's an uphill battle. Right? Because people, you see, before you approach religion, you have this ontology of religion. You have this understanding of, it's not learned, I don't mean it's like an academic opinion or an understanding. It's something we all have. You already have an understanding of what religion with a capital R is going to provide for you. Or provide for people. So let's say today, Mu'azzam comes and he wants to learn about Islam. He doesn't know anything about Islam. Or somebody wants to learn about Christianity, or they want to learn about anything. They don't know anything about the religion. But they will already have expectations. So they would already think, okay, there's going to be worship involved. They're going to already have certain concepts they're carrying about the word religion. One of those will definitely be, like, so they'll, amongst them will be things like they believe suffering will be part of it. People believe sacrifice will be a part of religion. People believe that, and this is interesting, they believe being anti-world, like kind of ascetic, not of the worldly stuff, will be one of the concepts of religion. This is without even being taught this. You would already think this. So they would think desires are anti-religion without even being taught that. And in desires, they would think, and this is another one, that entertainment is anti-religion without even being taught that. So now you don't even need a single text in Islam to tell you that music is haram. The fact that you carry that ontology of religion, you would easily be so susceptible to that view because you carry this perspective that religion ought to ban, it ought to be anti-entertainment, anti-desires, anti-gratification, anti-world, So when somebody shows you, well, actually, religion isn't like that, there's what we call cognitive dissonance takes place. It's difficult to reconcile that because that's not your understanding of what religion ought to be. So this is why people will so easily always say music is haram and struggle with even when they're given evidences on why it's okay.
Classical scholars of the past said that.
Several scholars have said this, beginning with from the time of the Prophet. You've got a hadith in Tirmidhi, for example, the Prophet is walking and somebody's playing a flute and the Prophet is with Ibn Umar and he puts his, the Prophet didn't like the music and so he put his, he kind of blocked his thing and he says to Ibn Umar, look, listen, tell me when we can't hear it. So then Ibn Umar says, okay, we can't hear it at a certain point. Now this in itself, okay, some people say, oh look, but the Prophet didn't like music, but that's his personal thing. He didn't like. Why would he tell somebody to do something forbidden? Why would he say, hey, listen, you listen to it and tell me when it stops? So, but then people like companions like Ibn Zubayr, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, he had, it's known about. In fact, what's a very detailed some research has been done on it by Imam Shawkani in his Nail al-Awtar. He brings all the chains to do with all the narrations to prohibiting music. He brings all the scholars that have said that music is permissible. And he in the end demonstrates, although I don't think he was too pro-music himself, but he says to be objective, we must say that there is no clear text prohibiting music. He says there are all these texts which I've highlighted, but none of them are conclusive. But he himself says, look, I don't really advise it, but I'm just being honest with the literature, with the
Do you therefore think
scripture.
a more constructive way of answering those people that ask those questions would be, what type of music do you listen to? And
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Because I don't, you see, this policing people like that, like I don't think, that's like saying to people say, yeah, but some kind of music swears in it. Some kind of music does this in it. Some kind of music's all about sex. Some kind of music's all about this. Yeah, but so is poetry. In the time of the Prophet, all of Arabic poetry, what was it mainly about? It was about bloodshed and sex. Was it not? And alcohol as well, sorry. Don't want to leave out the alcohol. And this was the same poetry that they used to sit in the Prophet's mosque and read. It's in Sahih Bukhari. They said they spent the whole night with the Prophet reciting the poetry. Then in the end, the Prophet said, all right, now let's read some Quran. That's in Sahih Bukhari. What poetry were they reading of? Da'il ayyama taf'a. I'm sorry, not from the mu'allaqat and all these kind of things. This poetry begins. Imra al-Qais was deemed the legend poet of all time. All his poetry is all about just having sex with countless women and stuff like this. This is what all his poetry is about. So the thing is, when you say, oh, it's about this is wrong. Yeah, but that's words. I understand what you're saying, but first of all, this is a different topic. Secondly, but this was there in the time of in their poetry. This was in all of their poetry. In fact, you cannot become a scholar of Islam without studying that poetry today. Like we have to study the mu'allaqat, We have to study the 10 major, the Dawn odes that were written in classical Arabic that were actually attached to the Kaaba before, of or at least 7 or 10, the mu'allaqat of the Dawn poets. And one of them, did reach Islam, but the thing is, the others generally didn't. They were pre-Islam, but their poetry was always reigned supreme. And even after Islam, as Islam comes along, what is their poetry still about? They get some nice, but they were just normal people doing normal things. Like the person, what's his name? Zuhair ibn Abi Salma, right? He was one of the Sahib al-Mu'allaqat. His Mu'allaqat is done, by the way. His actually isn't so much about sex and stuff. His is actually more about wisdom and stuff like that. And it is actually very awesome. He's a lot of wise things in there and sayings and how to kind of handle the world. But his son, Ka'b ibn Zuhair, he comes to the Prophet's mosque, he comes to the Prophet, and he was somebody who had previously insulted the Prophet. And there was people don't like him, so he was worried about his life. So he comes to the Prophet's mosque and he sits on the minbar. No, he comes to the Prophet and then he removes it kind of come covered, and the Prophet sees, this is Ka'b. And he says, look, I've come in peace and stuff like that. So the Prophet says, fine. And he says, I'd like to read some poetry for you. And he reads it, and the Prophet actually gives him the minbar to sit on and read it. And what does it begin with? Where he says, بانت سعاد فقلب اليوم متبول متيم إثرها لم يفتى مكبول. That, he's talking about his girlfriend, Su'ad. It begins, she's left me and my heart is all like this today. I'm imprisoned, who's going to open me from these kind of shackles from her, and I've been so... And then he just speaks about her for so long. And then he starts praising, and he says, and we hear that there's a messenger of God amongst us, and he praises the Prophet and so on. And so these things are part and parcel of poetry and language. Today, some cultures have very like Urdu poetry is something which is actually very kind of modest. It's in Arabic what they call al-hubb al-udhri. It's like very kind of like it's like a pure, non-asexual kind of like love. So it doesn't speak so much about the sexuality and stuff. It's more about the praise, beauty and things like that. Urdu poetry is mainly like that. But Arabic poetry, God, hell no. Especially the classical poetry and right through the Muslim era and the ages and major poets of Islam. And they were this was just open their diwans full of, apart from, I know some people, like obviously people can say, but then people don't study Arabic like that today. And but anyway, so I don't agree on that. I think people know what's right, what's wrong. I don't promote this kind of culture of this music of, gang banging and killing and doing all this kind of drug dealing. And I don't all this kind of like culture of going about like shooting people and doing this and doing that. And this culture, I do not promote that. And so the thing is, but I think people are intelligent enough to make their own choices. You don't need to say to people, like people know what's right, they know what's wrong. Look, if they can talk about it, they can listen to it, and they know this is wrong, they know that's wrong. So if that answers that. But I don't think, like to say, so for example, music is okay, but all hip-hop music is haram. Like I don't think that wouldn't make sense. Taking that, like music is to do with the music, it's not to do with the words. That's a separate matter. Obviously, if somebody's...
But do you not see that when people listen to that music at a younger age, that they get influenced and start behaving and acting upon what that music says?
I do.
So then wouldn't you logically think that it's
I should say it's haram. You see, I did think that, but I did think of giving that ruling, but then I just remembered that I wasn't God. You see, this is the audacity that we think we can change God's law because we think it's bad. How about, do you think God doesn't know his people? So if God didn't make it haram, who are we to make it haram? Allah says, وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَا تَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتُكُمُ الْكَذِبِ هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ تَفْتَرُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبِ. That you are attributing falsehood to God. You're saying this is haram. He never said it's haram. Right? So,
but those scholars do have evidences, like you said, that the majority of the opinion is that it does go haram.
Right.
They have evidences that they rely on. But you just personally think that they're taking a leap and they're extrapolating from that evidence and saying it is not allowed.
No. I made it very clear that there is no single conclusive and clear hadith at all to prohibit. There's plenty of hadith to say music is haram, but they're not authentic. And there's the authentic hadith which don't use the word music. They use words like entertainment. So people then say, oh, by entertainment, the Prophet meant music. But that's not what he said. This is an there's no two ways about that. That is an interpretation.
What is your interpretation of that entertainment?
So how about a strip club? How about clubs, nightclubs? How about places like entertainment could be in many forms. So why does entertainment have to be music?
But do you think that music that's talking about sex, drugs, and disrespecting women is perfectly fine?
No, I never said that. You asked me, does God declare music haram?
But if
I said in my reading, God does not do that. If he said that to you, then
rules that God has forbid.
okay.
Don't you think it's
You tell me, has God made it haram?
Has God made what haram?
Music haram.
I personally think music is haram.
No, I never asked you what you think. I said, has God made it haram? I never asked you what you think. I think, has God made it haram?
But my opinion is based on scholars.
Not scholars. Has God clearly made it haram?
The scholars have made their opinion and judgment based on the evidences that God has revealed.
Fair enough. Case closed.
That's what I'm saying.
What we're saying is God didn't make it haram. Scholars, through their judgment, I accept that many scholars have said it's haram, but I told you why they said that. They said it because you had an ontology of religion.
That's your opinion of why they said that.
Okay, true. Or they said it because they feel it leads people to whatever mischief.
Arabic words, in their interpretation of those Arabic words,
Which
the
words?
classical interpretation of the way people used to interpret those words, they interpreted it as it being music.
Which words? So it's interpretation
Based
then.
on the meanings of what people used to think they mean, yeah.
So it's an interpretation.
But that's most rulings in the Islamic fiqh is based on interpretations and ijtihad.
Okay. Look, don't listen to it. I don't get what the big deal is. You know, when people ask these questions, I don't get the big deal because look, if you don't like it, don't do it.
But I'm just saying, you're saying categorically all music is allowed.
It is allowed. Because last time I checked, if God sends me an update text message, I'll tweet it. But till then, right, I'll wait on.
But did you not get those verses that talk about zina? And zina
Let me just check. Is there no updates up until yet? Come on, we got broadband now. Sorry, what's
those verses about zina not being allowed and drinking alcohol not being allowed? Did you not receive them or did you not read them?
But what? Sorry, what's that got to do with music?
But I'm saying music that incites and encourages those things. You're saying it's allowed.
So you're saying, okay, now there's a question now. You see, you're asking me, is incitement, your question is speaking about alcohol haram? You're asking me this.
Is encouraged.
Is writing lyrics about alcohol haram? And the answer is no, it isn't, because this was being read in the Prophet's mosque in front of the Prophet. And that's in Sahih Bukhari.
If it influences people to drink it, what's the whole point of enjoining good?
What happened to free will?
What's the point of enjoining good and forbidding evil then?
Yeah, but maybe it's our understanding of enjoining and forbidding which needs to be questioned.
Okay.
Yeah, because maybe it's not like go around with a stick and bash people and try to get forced. What's the purpose of things?
But no one said to do that.
Yeah, but it's not about trying to police. But look,
But no one's policing anyone because no one can go around saying.
yeah, but you're saying this thought of saying, look, I think this leads to behavior, therefore we should say God made it haram. Well, why should we say God when He didn't do it? Like, why should I lie? Where do I get the audacity from to lie on behalf of Allah? Like, look, people say, I think this leads people to bad behavior, ergo, let's just say Allah made it haram.
What you're saying is
But He didn't though.
So what you're saying is all the classical scholars.
I never said
Have
all the
against
classical
Allah.
scholars.
The majority of the classical scholars.
No, they actually give their reasons.
Well, then there you go. That's what I'm saying.
And I told you their reasons are like I said, their reasons may be that they said, oh, I accept this hadith, whatever, I don't care if it's weak. Or I accept whatever, and they've given their reasons. But we don't have to blindly follow them. Do you blindly follow all the scholars? No. So then why are you blindly following these?
I'm not blindly following.
But you're just saying, look, all the scholars have said this. First of all the scholars haven't said that. Many challenged it, criticized it, right from the time of the Prophet coming down. So they didn't all say that. Secondly, yes, people may have said that, but we don't blindly follow, do we? So let's look at the evidences. Shawkani, who is a man of hadith, who is a scholar and a legend of hadith and very impartial, he doesn't even like music. He actually says in the end, I don't even like music. He says, looking at all, he brings all the chains, he says, look, but being fair, none of these chains are authentic. But he says, I still don't encourage people to listen to music. I don't like it myself, whatever. But he says, let's just be honest with the text. Let's not lie. That was his point. Anyway, I mean, look, if we don't like music, don't listen to it. I'm not actually a big fan of music, to be fair, but it'd be difficult to believe now after I've said all of that. It's just I only listen to it when I'm just low on alcohol, that's all. Right, no, it's a joke, it's a joke.
Can I be good to this conversation with their judgment, just in case I want to justify it? Can you read it?
Well, don't worry about the day of judgment, inshallah. The thing is, I think this kind of card that Muslims... this kind of card that Muslims kind of throw a lot, like, on the day of judgment. Well, first of all, look, let me tell you something. As a human being, can you understand, like, let's say now I'm having a conversation, can you understand this conversation? I mean, you can understand my conversation, obviously, but you can understand, oh, look, oh, this is a joke, oh, this is this. You can understand this, yeah? So, do you think God is, what, incapable, handicapped, retarded, lacks intellect, what he understands? Obviously, if we can understand, why can't God understand? They say, oh, he's being sarcastic. Oh, he's being sarcastic, though. Oh, well, if you can understand sarcasm, what, God can't understand sarcasm? So you can understand things he can't. God doesn't get irony. God doesn't get metaphor. I mean, what? Like, so we can get, oh, it's okay. Oh, I get what you're talking about, but God, I don't know, It's it's a very, you're looking, denigrating Allah, like you're treating him, infantilizing him. Treating him like a little child. Like, oh, he doesn't, oh, we can get, obviously, we're mature, we can get this kind of stuff. We know you're talking, this is humor, it's funny. But God, he couldn't get that. Of course he can. So, the thing is, I think we need to, this is where I said it's evaluating our own concepts. It's how we picture. People say we need to truly understand God. I agree with them. We need to, because our understanding of God is sometimes a bit, it can be updated. There's updates out there. So, I don't know how much kufr disbelief I've brought myself into today. No, I'll just check if there's a text message. No. No, all good so far. So, yeah, any other question? Come on, people, what are some questions? Fire away. You're not going to get this much blasphemy in one evening. Anywhere else, so just fire away. Feel free.
I was curious about the beard, whether this is very arbitrary and
sure. You're curious about what? Sorry.
Sorry?
Curious about what?
More or less, I was curious about whether whether we should have the mustache or whether we should not really have the mustache.
Okay, or the beard, or both.
I mean, having the beard, of course, sunnah, but
okay.
Whether the mustache is kind of a yes or no, because I've seen scholars who have them and...
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, that's a good question. What is the beard and what is this? This is something which I have got a bit more of a detailed video on YouTube, which I've called the cutting perspective. No, the cutting edge perspective, that's it. So, the thing is that, look, the beard within Islam, the Prophet spoke of the beard as something part of nature. He said it was from the fitrah. So the hadith in Sahih Muslim says, in one narration it's khamsun min al-fitrah, 5 things are from the fitrah. In another one it says ashrun min al-fitrah, these 10 things are from the fitrah. If you go through what those things were, it's actually shocking. Because what are they? Like, name some. Like, does anybody here? Drop some? No? It's like rinsing your mouth, keeping fresh breath, keeping, things like this, like clipping your nails, doing stuff. Oh, and growing the beard. Like it was seen as part of like a natural thing. That's how, but what's happened is Muslims have recognized the rest, some Muslims, have recognized the rest as just natural things, and they've kind of accentuated the concept of the beard and taken it to another level. This isn't, the beard at best, generally in Islam, my understanding is that the Prophet said, yeah, you should grow a beard, it's part of nature. He never once, there isn't a single hadith, not a single hadith, where he defined what the beard should look like. What the length should be. Should it be at the sides? Could it be a goatee? Could it be a what? He never said anything ever. Now, not even once throughout his entire lifetime ever did he actually tell people, oh, by the way, you might want to actually know what the beard ought to be like. He didn't even say it once. The moustache as well, the Prophet said in a hadith, it's part of nature to not let them be really massive, like to kind of trim them. Generally, Muslims didn't used to shave their moustache because they just found it weird. Imam Malik obviously kind of mocked it, and he, in fact, to the extent that when he saw somebody shave his moustache, because Imam Malik also served the role as a judge as well, who would dispense kind of, I suppose, punishments where needed. So he said, if you brought me somebody like that, he said I'd have him punished for looking like that, for shaving his moustache and growing a beard, because it just made him look weird. That basically is making us suffer by having to look at him. So the point is, so if you say Imam Malik didn't have a sense of humor, there you go. So the thing is that the general ruling, the Hanafi madhab, the Hanafi school, interpreted the hadith where the Prophet said, oh, you should do ihfa, like trim the tash. Most people understood that as in like bulging kind of moustache which falls over, covers the mouth, and the Prophet had said it was natural to just trim it. So you could, so it's not kind of dipping in everything. And the Hanafi madhab took that to understand that you should almost eradicate, because the word ihfa in Arabic can also carry that meaning, but it generally doesn't. Like sometimes, you get words which can carry more than one meaning, and you have a general understanding, you can have another understanding as well. So they said that, oh, maybe you should completely remove the moustache. That's why you find it amongst certain people from the Indo-Pak region, because they're Hanafi in madhab. But otherwise, people don't normally do that, because the rest of the schools of law, or the schools, Islamic schools, didn't recognize that as a practice. They just said not to have it so kind of like all over the place. But okay, is Islam in need of modernization? All right. See, this is interesting, because I think Islam within it, it's not that Islam is in need of modernization. Islam carries within it an organic kind of structure which demands to reflect every age it's in. So Islam ought to be as modern as the age. But what does that mean? So it's not that Islam is rigid and now we need to modernize it. Islam inherently carries those structures to do that, and it wants you to do that. The Prophet said, "Inna Allah sayab'ath fi kulli qarn." Allah will send people in every generation, man yujaddid, who will renew and modernize that for the people, deenahum, that their deen will be kind of rejuvenated, modernized. Tajdeed means to make something new for them. So this is a hadith which is sahih. So the point is that the other thing that does need to be kind of updated is our perception of Islam. You see, one of the issues is we've had a huge disconnect, especially with, I suppose, the whole colonial periods, and even there's been a huge disconnect between Islam and, like, let's say 300 years ago, what was kind of coming along, and then there's been this huge, and now Muslims are trying to recreate that identity and recreate those thoughts. But what they're doing is they're taking textbooks which are like law books and trying to paint. It's like if I said to you, look, what was I don't know, what was Rome like in its heydays? So you said, what was it like? So we want to know what was it like, what was sanctioned, what wasn't, what did people used to believe, so we say, I know how we're going to do that. We're going to take the law books and paint a picture based on that. You see, but the truth is, when people write legal text, they're writing with a particular mind frame. That's not them. That's like a very serious legal speak that's going on, legalese that's going on. But we then assume that, all these people must have been serious. All these people, oh my God, there's laws for that. So that means people must have not done that. But that's not how society was. So when you read other books, you see, whoa, people weren't like that. Look, they were. So I think what's happening is we're taking textbooks from a certain era, from the medieval times. We're thinking that they're just like us, except just didn't have certain technologies. That's not true. The medieval people were a product of their own age. Everything has changed. The world has so changed in the last 500 years. The Industrial Revolution, the Scientific Revolution, the Economic Revolution, everything has changed. And it's more so in the last 100 years, less than that even. So when we try to understand things from certain people's worldviews, they lived in an entirely different world.
I'm sure you must have know the hadith in Sunan Tirmidhi and Imam Ahmed book, where the Prophet said approximately that the actual ummah, the consensus of the ummah will not fall upon misguidance, basically.
Yeah.
And the consensus of the ummah will always be on the right path. But so
the consensus or the ummah will always be?
No, the consensus, as in the scholars, the ijma.
No, the Prophet said the ummah, but I mean, okay, if you want to interpret it differently. I mean,
so would
just
you then say that
don't like usually just.
Would you then say that as long as the majority of the scholars in a particular era, so for example in our time, if the majority of scholars say something, then that is most likely going to be the guidance?
So basically what you're asking is truth democratic? No, that is what you're asking. So you're saying, is there a democratic, can we democratize truth? Not consensus, you said majority, democratize. So can we basically say that because 10 people have said this is true and one person said it isn't, so the 10, it's a democracy after all. It's not a democracy? Come on. All in favor, say aye. No? Consensus of the scholars. What consensus of the scholars?
Alcohol is haram.
Sorry? Yeah, but that doesn't need consensus because it's in the Quran. No, but I said of the scholars, not of the Quran. That's like saying there's one God. But you don't need a consensus to say there's one God because it's in the Quran. Give me a consensus. One of the conditions of consensus, if you read the books of usul, how do you arrive at consensus? They say, مَا لَا يَسْتَنِدُ إِلَى النَّص. That which does not go back to a text. That's actually what consensus is built on. It's built on things which do not have textual evidence for them. So name me one where we don't have textual evidence and we have a consensus. What do we have consensus on that is not textual? There is no consensus on consensus. We don't even agree on how consensus works. There's no consensus on consensus. The ulama of Islam are completely disagreed on what constitutes a consensus. Is an ijma' sukuti haq? Is an ijma' who is part of this ijma'? Who is part of the consensus? Are the Shia part of the consensus? Okay, who from the Sunnis then? Who's a Sunni? Salafis are not going to consider them Sunnis. They're not going to consider Salafis Sunnis. Who's a Sunni? So who is in this consensus? I mean, how does consensus, and who are the scholars? Imam Shafi'i said, who were the scholars? He said there's no person except some person is going to say he's such a don scholar, and somebody else is going to say he's such a jahil and ignorant fool, he doesn't know anything. He goes, so how do you even determine who the scholars are? Secondly, where do you find them in the world? It's not like we have a register where everybody registers themselves as scholars. So how, and then thirdly, how do you